You have a type. Be honest. And it's not a good type, is it? It's a specific flavor of person who keeps turning up in your life wearing a different face, and it keeps ending the same way, and every single time you were sure this one was different. Here's the thing that should bother you. The odds of that being coincidence are basically zero. Something is selecting. And it isn't your conscious mind, because your conscious mind has sat there after every breakup listing exactly what went wrong and swearing it won't do that again, and then it does it again. Carl Jung has the most uncomfortable answer anyone has ever given to this, and it's this. You have never actually met any of them. Not one. Not really. Because what you fell in love with wasn't a person. It was an image you were carrying around inside you long before they showed up. And when someone walked past who fit the shape closely enough, your mind threw that image over them like a sheet over furniture, and then you fell in love with the sheet. Jung called that projection, and he said it's not a rare malfunction, it's the ordinary mechanism of falling in love. It's what falling in love is. Which raises the obvious question, what happens when the sheet comes off? And Jung, who spent his life mapping this, is the last person you'd expect to have got it wrong in his own house. He didn't. He got it spectacularly wrong. For roughly 40 years, he sat down to Sunday lunch with his wife on one side of the table and the other woman on the other side. Both of them, every week. So here's what you'll walk away knowing. What projection actually is and why it feels exactly like destiny. Where your type was manufactured and by whom. Why the magic dies somewhere between month 6 and year 2, and why Jung says that's the good news. The genuinely strange story of the 2 women at his table, and what he'd tell you to do about the person you're thinking about right now. 5 parts. Let's go. Start with the machinery. Jung's model of you has a basement. There's the part of your mind you're aware of, and underneath there is a vast amount of material you're not. Things you've repressed, things you've never developed, things you inherited and never examined. That material doesn't sit quietly, it has to go somewhere. And what it does is get thrown outward onto other people. Jung called it projection. Here's the everyday version you already believe in. Think of a person who irritates you far more than they should, out of all proportion. Something small they do and it makes your skin crawl. Jung's line about that is one of the most useful sentences in psychology. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. That flash of disproportionate irritation is almost never about them. It's a piece of you, something you were taught to bury, something you don't allow yourself. And you're seeing it walk around outside your body wearing someone else's clothes. That's why it's unbearable. It's yours. Now here's the move that makes this an episode about love instead of an episode about annoyance. Projection runs in both directions. If you can throw everything you hate onto a stranger, you can throw everything you long for onto a stranger too. And when that happens, we don't call it a psychological mechanism, we call it love at first sight. So what exactly is getting thrown? Jung's answer is his most famous idea about love, and it has a strange name, the anima and the animus, the short version. Every person carries an inner image of the opposite. A man carries an unconscious feminine figure Jung called the anima. A woman carries an unconscious masculine figure, the animus. It's not a person, it's a composite, a kind of internal portrait you have never consciously seen. And it's assembled out of 3 things. First, and most heavily, your parent of that sex. The way they were present or absent, warm or withholding, that's the primary brushwork. Second, every cultural image you absorbed of what that sex is supposed to be. Films, songs, the couples you grew up watching. And third, and this is the one people miss, all the parts of yourself you never got permission to develop. The softness a man was trained out of, the authority a woman was trained out of, that doesn't disappear. It goes into the portrait and then you go looking for it in other people. Jung even sketched how the image can mature, from pure physical fascination up through romantic idealization to something more like devotion, And finally, to a kind of wisdom where the other person is genuinely seen. Most people, he thought, never get past the second stage. They spend their lives idealizing, then disappointed, then idealizing again. You don't know any of this is running. You've never seen the portrait directly, but it is the most powerful casting director you will ever meet, and it has been working your whole life. Now here's the mechanism, and it explains the single weirdest experience in human life. You walk into a room. You see someone across it. You have exchanged 0 words. You know nothing about their values, their temper, how they treat waiters, whether they're kind at 6 a.m. And something in your chest says, that one. Jung's explanation is almost mechanical. That person happens to carry a hook, some real feature, a gesture, a laugh, a way of going quiet, that matches a detail in the portrait you've been carrying. It only has to be a small hook, and the moment it catches, the entire image drops onto them. And now you are not looking at a stranger. You're looking at your own inner half, standing in the room, in a body, finally reachable. Which is why it feels like recognition rather than discovery. People always describe it that way. It felt like I already knew them. Jung would say, you did. You'd known that image your whole life. You'd just never seen it out walking, and it explains the type. If the portrait was assembled from a distant parent, you will feel the click with distant people, not because you enjoy suffering, but because distance is in the picture. The available, warm, present person doesn't catch the hook. There's nothing there to grab. So they feel like nothing, like a friend, like there's no spark. That's not the absence of love. That's the absence of a match to an old drawing. Now the part everybody lives through and nobody is warned about. A projection cannot hold, not permanently. Because the person underneath it is a real human being, and real human beings insist on being themselves. They will eventually do something the image would never do, and every time that happens, a little of the sheet slips. Month 6, month 18. There's no fixed date, but it always arrives, and it usually arrives quietly, not with a betrayal, with a Tuesday. They chew loudly, they tell a story you've heard before, and you feel something cold go through you, and the thought that shows up is, have I made a mistake? Jung's read on that moment is completely different from yours. He doesn't think you fell out of love. He thinks something far more interesting just happened. The stranger has arrived. For the first time, there is an actual separate person in the room with you, not your inner portrait wearing their face, somebody with their own history you had nothing to do with. And here is Jung's claim, which is the whole reason this episode exists. Everything before that moment was not love. It was fascination. It was recognition of your own material. It was, in the most literal sense, a relationship with yourself conducted through another person's body. Love, the thing he'd actually call love, can only begin after the projection falls, because only then is there someone there to love. Almost nobody stays for that part, because the withdrawal of a projection feels terrible. It doesn't feel like clarity, it feels like loss, like the magic drained out and you got cheated. And so the standard move is to conclude they changed, or you settled, and go find someone new, someone who catches the hook again, and the whole cycle restarts with a different face. That is the machine that gives you a type, not bad luck, not bad judgment. A projection thrown, worn out, and thrown again. Jung has a line about problems like this one. The greatest and most important problems of life, he said, can never really be solved. They can only be outgrown. You don't fix your type by choosing more carefully. You outgrow it by becoming someone who isn't casting the part, which is precisely the thing he could not do himself. (1903). Carl Jung marries Emma Rauschenbach. She is 21, from one of the wealthiest families in Switzerland, and this matters enormously. She is formidably intelligent. She will raise 5 children. She will become a serious analyst in her own right, with her own patience. She will write one of the early studies of the animus, the very concept we've been discussing. She is nobody's footnote. And before we go further, there's an earlier chapter that tells you this was a pattern, not an accident. A few years into the marriage, a young patient named Sabina Spielrein came to him, and the relationship crossed a line Jung himself later confessed to Freud in writing. She went on to become a significant analyst herself, so the shape was already there. Then, around 1910, a young woman named Toni Wolff arrives. She is a patient, severely depressed, and brilliant. And very quickly, she is not only a patient. The timing is everything here. A few years later, Jung goes into the most dangerous period of his life, a long, deliberate confrontation with his own unconscious, the years that produced the Red Book, when by his own account, he genuinely did not know whether he would come out the other side intact. And the person who goes down into that with him, who keeps him tethered to the world, is Toni. She becomes his collaborator, his guide through the material, and she becomes, in the most literal sense a life can manage, his anima, standing up and walking around. And then Jung does something almost nobody does. He doesn't choose. Toni becomes part of the household. For decades at the house in Küsnacht, there are Sunday afternoons with Emma at one end of the table and Toni at the other, and Jung in the middle. The children grow up with it. Emma, by every account we have, endured it, and both women stayed. He would not give up either one. Emma was the life, the family, the ground under his feet. Toni was the fire and the work, and the man who taught the world that you must withdraw the projection and meet the actual human being kept his installed at his own dining table for 40 years. Toni Wolff died in 1953. Jung was too unwell to go to the funeral, and afterward he carved stone by hand as a memorial. Emma died 2 years later, and he carved for her too. He outlived them both and reportedly said that Emma had been a queen. You can read that story two ways, and I think you have to hold both. One, the theory is hypocrisy, and he built an elaborate system to justify what he wanted. Two, and this is the one I'd argue, nobody who had simply read about projection could have written what he wrote. He knew what it costs because he was paying it every week at lunch. So what do you actually do with this? Jung's word for the work is individuation, the long project of becoming a whole person, going down into the basement, meeting the material you've disowned, and taking it back. And notice what that does to love. If the missing half is inside you and you retrieve it, then you stop needing another human being to carry it for you. You stop auditioning people for a role. Two whole people meeting is a completely different event from two halves clamping together. And Jung's image for that is chemical. When two personalities meet, he said, it's like two substances coming into contact. If there's a reaction, both are transformed, not completed, transformed. Neither one arrives as a spare part. 3 things you can actually do tonight. 1. Take your type and write down what it's actually made of. Not tall or funny, yet the emotional shape. Distant, chaotic, needing to be rescued. Then ask the real question, who in my childhood was that? You are usually one honest sentence away from the answer, and you usually already know it. 2. Next time someone irritates you far past what they deserve, don't act on it. Just ask what it is you're not allowed to be. That's your own material waving. 3. And this is the one that matters. When the magic goes out of something, treat it as a door, not a verdict. That flat, disappointed feeling isn't the end of the love. It's the first moment a real person has been in the room. Everything before it was you, in a mirror. Most people leave at exactly that door. The whole of love, for Jung, is on the other side of it. So the ledger takes its next line in a careful clinician's hand. Jung. Love is a projection, and it begins the day it falls. Read the column. Plato. Love is a ladder. Schopenhauer. Love is nature using you. De Beauvoir. 2 freedoms, never a merger. Fromm. Love is an art you were never trained in. Kierkegaard. Love is a leap you keep choosing. And now Jung. Whatever you fell for at first sight, that was you. Tonight's question, What are you asking someone else to carry? That was always yours? And yes, I know. The man with the enormous mustache has been standing in the corner since the end of the last one, and he is not pleased about waiting. Which is almost funny because Jung wrote one sentence that reads like it was aimed directly at him. Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, there love is lacking. That's a challenge. And the mustache has an answer. That love has always been a will to power, that you love your own desire and never the person, and that the only way out is to say yes to every brutal part of your fate. Friedrich Nietzsche. Next time, for real. Same question, always. What is love?